The National Museum of Funeral History presents The Final Curtain Never Closes. I'm your host, Genevieve Keeney Vasquez, the president and CEO of the museum. Today, I'm joined by two guests from TerryBear Urns, Nikki Nordine, who's the executive director of client success and board growth, and Brent Thorson, client success and growth manager. I'm truly honored to have you guys here. Welcome.
Thanks, Genevieve. We're happy to be here.
Yeah, very happy to be here.
Well, I have to tell you, first and foremost, TerryBear Urns, correct?
Yes.
Is a company that I've come to know, I want to say, when I first started here at the museum at one of my first conventions. And Nikki, you were the person I met. So I've always, truthfully, every time I think of TerryBear, I see your face. So you are the face of TerryBear to me. So tell me a little bit about how you got started with TerryBear and why TerryBear? Why is the name?
Yeah, so I've been with TerryBear. This is my 20th year. So I'm a lifer at TerryBear. And when it was when I started at TerryBear, I was so interested in the company, interested in the industry. And once I had an opportunity to meet the team there, I knew I really wanted to work there. I started out in a sales and marketing function, and it's just kind of been more sales and marketing all along the 20 years. So it's really been a rewarding career for me.
So were you ever in a funeral industry capacity prior to going with TerryBear?
Definitely not. I never dreamed that the funeral industry is where I would spend my career. I had a brief job in the golf industry.
Oh, interesting.
Prior to TerryBear. But, you know, for me, once I'm here, I never want to leave. I love the industry so much.
Well, if you ask me, golf and the funeral industry go hand in hand.
I know they do for you, Genevieve.
They do for me because that's our main fundraiser every year, right?
It is.
It's the golf classic that we have. So very fascinating. So tell me a little bit about how TerryBear got its name.
Yeah, so that's a question that we get asked really frequently. So our founder is actually a man named Terry. He founded the business back in the early 80s. And at that time, he was selling plush, so like teddy bears. So he and his wife were actually selling plush. It actually was on street corners in Miami and then eventually Minneapolis. And, you know, at one point early on, they said, we need to name this business. And so it was a sort of an obvious name with the Terry and the teddy bear. So TerryBear. Now, over the years, Terry, he's a product person and he's an entrepreneur. So he would go overseas to source all kinds of treasures and trinkets and things like that and bring them back to the U.S. market and sell them. And there was a certain point in the early 90s where he was bringing in a lot of brass wares from India. I think, you know, any of us who were alive in the 90s can remember the brass candlesticks, the little brass animals and things like that. So that's what Terry was importing. And over time, he had one client in northern Minnesota who consistently bought these cute little brass ginger jars by the case. And one day they asked her, like, you know, hey, Pam, what are you buying these for? And she said, oh, I'm using them as pet urns. And it was just like the light bulb went off and they were like, we should design some pet urns, and quickly pivoted to urns for the funeral market. And, you know, 30 some years later, here we are, you know, one of the biggest urn and memorial item distributors in the industry.
So is it safe to say that they started with the brass look?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yes, most definitely. Everything we did up front was brass, and then we started sprinkling in some other materials. Next came cloisonne, next came some woods and MDFs, and now we have just an entire assortment that kind of runs the gamut of all the materials, all the price points, all the dispositions. But yeah, up front, it was definitely very brass looking.
Very interesting, because really, we have a section in our cremation exhibit that has, it's entitled Urns Through Time, right? Mm-hmm. So there's something to be said about the materials that were used in different time periods. So you could truly see, like, when the metals were used, when the brass was used, just like you said, you can almost get the timeline of where we were in our productivity of materials.
Yeah, so absolutely. When we came into the market, actually, there were the primary materials for urns were bronze, which, I'm sure you have plenty of bronze out in the museum, and hardwoods. And that was really what was in the market. So TerryBear actually was an industry disruptor because we brought in these lower cost metals and they had this threaded lid. They were very easy to use. They were very low cost. And so it actually disrupted the market a little bit back in the 90s.
But disrupted it in a good way.
In a good way. I mean, well, look at where we are now.
Oh, yeah, I know, right? There's so many materials.
Yeah.
It's truly amazing. And I think we just now have our first 3D printed urns now, showcased in our niche wall here at the Cremation exhibit. So it's pretty fascinating to truly see that it's truly the materials that mark specific periods in time.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
You're so right.
That's fascinating. Things that you just don't think about, And I know in the very beginning, I had a really hard time saying TerryBear because I just automatically wanted to say teddy bear.
And most people do. And over time we've thought, is this really the right name for our business? But ultimately, it is memorable, and people remember, even if they call us teddy bear urns, we know they're looking for us. So we maintain it.
Oh, that's good. And also that I think there's some comfort there to the name as well, right? Yeah. So and it's one I definitely will never forget. And I love it every time I see it. So I want to talk a little bit now to Brent and ask Brent a little bit of his history with the business and how you got started.
Yes, so you were talking about how you get into this industry, right? I remember my first conference, a gentleman came up to me, and this was Jerry Sullivan, who ran the Cremation Society of Chicago for many, many years. He came up to me, and he was very friendly and open, and I think that this industry just reflects that, in people in it. But he came up to me and said, no one ever grows up thinking they're going to be in this industry. And so that was my first experience at Cana. And I was working at the time for a columbarium company that makes and designs niches, spaces for urns. So got into it from that and spent about 8 years with that company. And I met Nikki at some of the conferences at NFDA and the TerryBear team because we're all in Minnesota. So the company I work for was in Minnesota as well. So just connected with them, and so now we've been in it for a while, and it's just fun to be on the urn side of things too. Just having both the cemetery side and the funeral home side has been interesting for me. So,
and you understand the importance of the products at the end of the day. That
absolutely,
the products are true reflection of that finalization of putting their loved one in a container, to house them for an eternity.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, and I think you mentioned, how the materials change through the years, and it really is, what people want changes a lot. And we're finding that now, we're here to kind of celebrate a new product that we're releasing. But we read the reports from NFDA and some of those things that are important in the funeral industry. And, one of the ones that we talked about, this new product we're releasing is eco-friendly. And 68% of consumers are looking for an option that's eco-friendly. And this is from the NFDA's 2024 Consumer Awareness Preferences Report as example. And that has increased about 12 percentage points over the course of the last 5 years. So you think about that, that's a shift in mindset, bronze and wood to brass and other materials. And it's just expanded. We have now scatter urns. We have, I mentioned this new product we're releasing is actually an eco-friendly cremation container called LifeArt. And that really plays into that idea that people are looking for more personalized things. They're looking for ways that they want to protect the earth or they're concerned about where they're going and what that means to the family. So.
Yeah, it's interesting you're talking about how we listen to the consumers, because if when you go through the National Museum of Funeral History, we pretty much talk about the history of the industry and how so much of the products and services that we provided back then basically was what you see is what you get. Sure. Right? There wasn't a lot of decisions to be made. This is what is available, and this is how we're going to care.
It was what was at the funeral home, or whoever's helping them out through that grieving process. Right.
What was in the casket selection room at the time, right? Yeah. And a lot of times it was the same type of caskets, the same type of materials. There wasn't a variety, if you will. No. And I want to say that, I think our technology and our access to resources has been a true influence on us having more products to choose from. But like you said, I think a lot of these products that we're creating now is because it's the request of the consumers.
Yeah.
The consumers are bringing the concepts to us.
Well, the internet sort of opened up everything, right? Like, like you said, you walk into a funeral home in the 80s or the 90s, that's what was in front of you. And nowadays, people search before they even go into the funeral home. They look online. They, we just actually had this release of this product here in Houston. I mean, in the Houston market alone, there are 15,000 people Googling for personalized funerals every single month. And there are, I think it's 25,000 people a month are looking for eco-friendly funeral options. So that's what people are looking for. And the internet sort of tells us, kind of what those preferences are, and it can lead to trends and show where it's headed. So yeah, it's an interesting time to be involved. But I think that personalization piece will never go away.
No, I think it's only going to get stronger as we go, and it's going to continue to evolve. I think now I've seen where there's small screens that can be put into the tombstones or the headstones, and you can actually watch a small movie clip of that person in their life. I mean,
isn't that amazing?
A whole story can be told on the headstones now. I mean, not only are we going to personalize the products that we're putting our loved ones into, but we're personalizing their final resting space as well, right? And I find that fascinating. So let's talk about the reason why you did come to Houston. I think it is fascinating. I attended the event. I was truly mesmerized by the setup, the products, the true reflection that these products embodied, right? And it speaks to the person's life, basically, right? And so, Nikki, tell us a little bit about it and why LifeArt? Why did we choose that as the title of this amazing work that you guys are bringing to the industry?
Absolutely. So actually, LifeArt is a global brand that has been in Europe, in Hong Kong, and in Australia for the past decade. So it's actually it's a proven concept that's been selling in other geographic markets for the last 8 to 10 years, depending on the market. Lavina Lau, TerryBear's CEO, met the founder of the business early on in her career, and she always thought that it was a really interesting concept. And so we just, as we do in our industry, it's a small industry, we keep in touch and, we check in with each other from time to time. But in 2020, Lavina, unexpectedly lost both of her parents. Her family lived in Hong Kong. She was in Minneapolis. And so she, had to travel halfway across the world to go for the funeral of her parents. Because it was COVID, she was stuck in quarantine for 2 weeks. This was early on where we had very stringent guidelines. And so her siblings made the arrangements. And as they're sitting with the funeral director and they're making the arrangements, her brother texted her a picture of, this is what we're thinking for mom and dad. And it was LifeArt. And she recognized it. And she was so honored to have her parents go in the LifeArt container because she always thought it was really, kind of just a cool concept in general. But then, while she was still quarantined in her hotel room, her brother and sister went ahead and made the arrangements. And again, she couldn't attend the viewing ceremony because, again, she was stuck in that hotel. But they sent her a few pictures of her mom and her dad side by side at the crematory in these beautiful, full color, celebratory cremation containers. And it just really brought her a sense of, number one, celebration, because the particular one that they had chosen was it's a Monet water lilies. And for her, it reminded her of a time that she and her family, when she was younger, visited an art museum in Europe, and they saw all the Impressionist paintings, and her mom really connected with that particular type of painting. And so for her, it just brought her these really warm memories. And so she really felt like this was, even though she couldn't physically be there, she still felt this feeling of love and celebration. And even though she was heartbroken and sad, it still felt pretty good.
So for our listeners, I'm going to try to put all this into context for them to help them understand. So when we begin the cremation process of the human body, all of the bodies have to be placed into a container so that the body, will easily go into the cremation vessel. And so majority of the time, that container is a cardboard box.
Correct.
And it looks just like it is a brown cardboard box. And it burns, cleaner than a casket. Some people do purchase a casket, and the casket can get burned with the body. My sister, as a matter of fact, was cremated in her casket. We didn't have her transferred into a cremation container known as the cardboard box. And so, of course, the ash that we got back was much darker because of the wood burning along with her. But if you wanted the cleaner, whiter looking ash, if you will, then a cremation container is where you're going to get that type of result. But again, in some customs and religions, they follow the body to the crematory. They watch the body go into the crematory in its container, and then sometimes people will push the button and get started because it's part of that process. And so, instead of just having a cardboard box, and I can say when I saw the slideshow of the LifeArt containers sitting there on the tables, waiting to go into the crematory, versus what I've always come to see, which is that cardboard box sitting on the tray, waiting to go in. I truly saw the difference myself. I witnessed that difference of, wow, what a beautiful concept. What a wonderful send-off, right? And like you said, it's eco-friendly, it burns clean, and it has a beautiful aesthetic appearance, but at the same time speaks volumes to the person inside.
Absolutely.
So LifeArt really truly is a cremation container, not a cardboard box. It's a cremation container made out of eco-friendly materials with an image, or basically covering the entire thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And talk about some of these images that you guys have to offer right now.
So we started with 8 SKUs, eight designs that are themes and maybe hobbies and interests that we in the urn space hear people looking for a lot. So I think there was one that really spoke to you. It's called our Stars and Stripes.
Yes.
So that's for our veterans, maybe some of our other first responders, and even just our patriots, right? So that one is covered with it looks like a beautiful draping of an American flag. There's some outdoor scenes that really speak to some outdoor enthusiasts, hunters, fishermen, that sort of thing. We launched this product. We're here launching it because we're ready to sell now, but we actually did a pre-launch on one of our industry trade shows back in the fall, an FDA, and we had showcased 2 of our outdoor scenes, and so many people were drawn to this beautiful mountain and lake scene that we have. We've got options we have one called Soulful Songbirds. That's some beautiful little, almost like oil color looking birds for your bird watchers. We've got a beautiful one called Harmonious Rose for those maybe who liked to garden or that sort of thing. Brent, what other designs do you want to focus on?
The sky, the birds. It's kind of like you said. We're looking for ways to go to the idea that maybe a cardboard box doesn't celebrate a life lived.
Yeah.
And that's I know it's not for everybody. Sometimes that's a perfect fit for what the family wants or what they need. But we really just think if you show them. With burial caskets, as an example, when you bring them into a display room, you show them all the options.
Correct.
You show, economy line, you show, everything in between, and, customization pieces you can do on the corners, or, and it's always been something that's been part of full burial and caskets, is that we can personalize this, we can make it, for the family. And I think cremation, the missing component is that cremation container. And, we can personalize an urn, we can personalize a keepsake or jewelry, but I think that part is the really key part is, what about that cremation container? What can that help celebrate and help the family grieve and go through that process? I mean, you talked about, your sister, that probably meant a lot, when she was got to pick her specific container that she went into the retort in. And I think, we think this opens up opportunities for funeral homes to change the conversation instead of just saying, oh, you're cremated, well, urn and, so on and so forth. Let's personalize this part. Let's talk about how we make this special for the family. So that's kind of the concept behind it, is to change that conversation.
And I think, to me, what was the most impactful in having this LifeArt as an option in the cremation container is the beauty that is portrayed in the photography that is taken of your loved one. When, people, if somebody can't be there and you want to take a photo, you're not taking a photo of a cardboard box that looks like, very industrial.
Do you want light brown? We joked about that. Do you want light brown or a little darker brown? But all joking aside, I mean,
rounded corners or
right? Yeah,
straight corners.
All joking aside, you're right, and that's. These designs we're starting with are just kind of our first 8 release of designs. And our next phase, our real plan is to do full customization.
Yeah, because I think when I was there, I'm a veteran myself. And of course, the flag resonates with me 110%. However, I have other hobbies that I do.
Yeah.
And so I want crystals embellished in with mine. And, I really would love, and cremation, I already know, hands down, I'm getting cremated. I think people know my last wishes through multiple podcasts that I've done, right? So if I'm not cremated,
it's going to be a problem.
There is, yeah. But there's so many things that I want to do in my death because it will mimic my life, because I did so much in my life and I want that to translate into my death.
Right.
And so bless my children's heart, they're going to have a list of stuff to do with me. And then now LifeArt is going to be one of those pieces. And before I saw your amazing product a couple of days ago, I was destined for a cardboard box.
Sure.
Well, and one of the things about that makes this so special to us is someone like you, who's very vibrant and colorful and full of life. Your kids don't want to remember seeing you in a brown cardboard box.
Exactly.
And our whole goal of this is so that families have no regrets in the choices that they make, because when they look back on it, you can't go back and do it over. You get one chance. And so we want to make sure that families have access to all of the options. And this one seems to really, really speak to people when they see it and hear about it. And it's nothing that most families, they don't even know about it. They haven't even thought about it. But once you tell them, we've heard stories like, oh yes, my sisters and I wanted to have one last viewing of Mom, and we went to the funeral home.
Small gathering.
And she was in a cardboard box, and we had no idea that that's what we were going to see. And they were heartbroken, right? And it didn't feel dignified.
And that's, I think, sometimes what people don't realize is that they have choices that can be made. Unfortunately, if we don't have the product available to give them that choice, then they are left with whatever resources are available, right? Like a cardboard box, right? To put the deceased loved one in for the cremation process. You talked about how they wanted to have one last viewing with Mom, and they went in and saw a cardboard box. And one of the things that we in the funeral industry try very, very hard to do is do anything that is going to supersede that lasting impression of a bad thought, right?
Yeah.
We want them to walk away with a lasting impression of Mom looked peaceful, Mom looked beautiful. Wow, did you see Mom, how she was laid out in that container, and it just so reflected who she was as a person. Rather than now, these people will forever remember Mom in that cardboard box. I mean, it doesn't matter how beautifully she was dressed or how well her makeup was done or how peaceful and restful she looked. They will just remember that.
Yeah. They remember my mom deserved more, and I didn't do it for her.
Exactly. And I can say, I can truthfully speak to that. And being in the industry myself, However, I just had graduated from mortuary school when my sister passed away, and her death was so kind of sudden for me that I was in a fog. So when I went to go to my sister's funeral, there were so many things that there were just like little snippets of a quick snapshot of the
Right.
whole event, because I was truly distracted by the
Moves
grief.
quick, right? Yeah. I
There
like
were
how you
parts-
describe it, grief fog. I've never heard anybody say that. That's a very good explanation of what families go through.
Yeah, and in that, I had they not recorded my sister's funeral, to be honest with you, I never would have been able to remember a lot of it. But I can truly say I did have a lot of regrets afterwards because of the knowledge that I have come to know in the industry, the things that I've learned that I could have done for my sister. And I think that's what drives some of my passion here with the museum, is that because I lacked the knowledge, even though I'm in the industry, there were so many things I didn't get to do for my sister.
Right.
And so now my whole mission is to introduce the choices that people have and research these choices when you're of sound mind
Yeah.
and not distracted by grief and in that fog.
Yeah.
And bring those ideas, those concepts to your funeral director, because they're going to listen. Because we talked about that earlier, right? Our trends are changing based on the consumer's
They are.
requests.
There's the internet again, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's you talk about regrets. If you're in a fog like that and you don't know what's happening, you know it moves quickly, and you make choices. And then what do you do when you go home after everything is settled? You look on the internet and you go, "Oh, I missed this," or I could have done that. We were speaking with somebody who talked about thumbprints, or on jewelry. Like they were like, I didn't know that existed. I didn't know I could do that. So those are the little things that can really help. Like you said, gain not only, and it's not just for the families. I mean, funeral homes and funeral directors, they work so hard to serve families, and they just, they want that loyalty back from the families, and they want exactly what you said. You want that family to leave with a feeling of complete, just love and sending off your loved one in that way. So it's a lot of work to get to that point. But, I think these new products help that. They help that feeling.
And I think another thing that's interesting is that a funeral director who runs a funeral home, who's providing those services, unfortunately can't be all knowing,
Exactly.
right, of all the products that are
sure.
available out there, right? They only have so much space to display
Yep.
X amount of products. So if the family can come to the funeral director and say, "Hey, I saw this, and I would really love to get it for my family member," then the funeral director can reach out because they know where the resources lie. They just might not be basically stalking that particular item.
Right.
But I think it's important to know that you can, bring that concept to your funeral director and say, this is what I want for my loved one. Can we make it happen? And of course, the funeral director is going to do whatever they can because we are so service oriented.
Service, exactly.
It's service and detail, I
Yeah.
have to say, are the two top qualities of the people in our industry.
Very accurate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's been our experience for sure.
So, and one of the things I wanted to also mention, which I found to be very moving and aesthetically calming, and I think it's because I have a little OCD trait, and I'm all about matching. I'm all about things having, if I have something on the left, I have to have something on the right to balance, right? I'm about balance. I'm a Libra, by the way. So balance is important, but so is matching. And one of the things I did notice is the nice matching theme that went in with these products that you guys are now offering with this LifeArt. The cremation container matched the urn. Urn matched a beautiful framed photo. There was something to be said for that, and I to me, someone with that type of trait truly can appreciate that.
It's almost has a calming effect. I mean,
Yes.
when we first, we've been offering urns and keepsakes and jewelry and things like that for years, but when we added these cremation containers to our lineup, we noticed that connection became complete with cremation. And it's just really fun to see those come to life and what a great way to merchandise something in your funeral home, where because that's what you do at the service. You're going to put up, things that loved one had in their life or was important to them. And why not recognize everything that you're engaging with the family with to have that sort of feel, that aesthetic for sure.
Right. And the families generally, they don't know what they don't know, right? And
Exactly.
many times they didn't expect to be in this position. But if you can show them something like this, it just immediately paints them into the picture and they're like, I get it, right? This makes sense to me. And they can imagine what this would look like for their loved one. Yeah. And it's a little bit of the power of suggestion, but it's again, showing them the options that they might not know that are there. And so they don't have those regrets later, like, oh, you didn't tell me about this, or I didn't know about this. That they get to see many of the choices. I'm never going to say all, that's probably impossible, but many of the options.
Exactly. Yeah, I think if there was a catalog ever put together with all the products that are available, it would supersede the Sears catalog.
That's very true.
I mean, I think ours is getting pretty close, honestly.
It feels that way sometimes. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about perhaps what you guys have going into the future, and we're talking about, and I think it's just because of the advancements in technology, right, is allowing us to do more personalization. So I think that my burning question would be, I have, like I said, I want my cremation container to tell my life story. So that's a lot. That's 4 kids, 8 grandkids, a husband, cats, dogs, my hobbies, my travels around the world, and my service to the country. And so I would love for my cremation container to tell my life story. What would that look like? How would that even begin? And is this something that you feel that the families or the consumers are going to need to pre-plan for, and so that you can have adequate turnaround time to create this product? Have you guys thought that far ahead yet? Can I ask that question?
Yes. So we are planning for phase 2. We're in phase 1 right now, where we said we've chosen these interests, these beautiful designs. This is what we're going to hit the market with just to start to introduce the concept. Phase 2 is total customization. However, we plan to do it in a measured way. So we will, we have online ordering tools that the funeral homes that we work with and distributors we work with, they use them. So our goal is to use technology to help us get there. So likely we would probably approach it by having some templates to choose from, right? And you just depending on what those templates would be, how many photos you might want to upload, what sort of story you would want to tell. I think absolutely some families will want to pre-plan for this, but there are others who don't have that luxury, right?
Correct.
But when someone passes, inevitably, we're digging up photos immediately, right? It's one of the first things that we're doing is trying to get our wits about us so that we can, get everything together for a celebration of life. So a lot of the photos that you typically would put in a digital slideshow for memorial service, or, when my grandparents died, we still did the old school photo boards that we put them up on the bulletin boards and, had them in the visitation room and at the funerals. So families are already gathering a lot of those details. So it's just a matter of making sure that they understand this option is going to be available for them.
It's kind of meeting people where they're at too. So I've said the internet like 5 times now, but we're used to uploading photos, making a travel book, there's so many tools that we use online that it's a pretty natural thing for a family to do that nowadays. You take your phone, you upload it. And so that's the plan. And, really the complete customization point of it, we showed the one casket. There was a woman who had died, of breast cancer at 32. And, she had gathered travel. She did fashion things, kind of exactly what we were talking about. And the family gathered it all up and they customized the complete container with her life story. And I just think that makes a even further impact, from even already what this product is going to do in the cremation container market, we think. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how long do you think it would take from the time that the photos are turned in to the time that the project is complete?
So again, we can reference what happens in our partner markets overseas, in the UK or in Hong Kong, and it really depends how much work that family wants to put into it. If we're going to nitpick with it, and so that the proofing process is probably the part that's going to take the longest amount of time. The product can actually be produced very quickly. It can be produced within 1 to 2 days.
Oh, okay.
And then depending on where we're going to ship it in the country, there's additional transportation time. But I think the families who want this, they will be willing to wait for it, an extra couple of days to get this designed the way they want it, and get it manufactured and then shipped to their funeral home or the care center or whomever's taking care of their loved one.
And then also this beautiful cremation container also can be present at the funeral. Correct? I mean,
100%.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
that they don't have to be in the traditional casket.
Right.
They can be right there in their burial container. The
Yep.
beauty of their story is being, portrayed on the outside for all to see. So, yeah.
So I actually think that brings families a lot of comfort as well, knowing that their mother or father or their loved one is not going to be shuffled from this container to that container. As we're going to place them, we're going to lay them in, and that's where they're going to be. It feels very respectful, very dignified.
Yeah, because that's another thing that people probably don't realize is the transferring of the remains
Yep.
that sometimes has to take place if the adequate containers for the end process or the end disposition is not available, right? So, yeah, I can see that. Lay them down once and let them be.
Yep.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's very interesting. So, I mean, like I say, LifeArt is a beautiful new concept that's available to us all, especially if we've chosen cremation as our final disposition. But I guess, what if I don't want to be cremated and I find a LifeArt piece to be very aesthetically appealing to me? I would rather have that over a traditional casket. Can I be buried in it?
I would say check your state regulations, but yes. That's, we're a cremation focused company. We believe that's where the future is, but could it be buried? Yes, it absolutely can. Does it fit in a standard burial vault? Yes, it absolutely does. And if it's a family who just, they're just interested in a more eco-friendly option, maybe they don't want, a stainless steel casket, or maybe they don't want to cut down hardwoods to create this. The way that the materials for our product is produced is very eco-friendly as well. They're, the adhesives are, made, they're vegetable based. The inks are eco-friendly. The material that you print the beautiful designs on actually utilizes trees that have already fallen. So we're not deharvesting forests to get the materials. There's some really interesting eco-friendly and green characteristics of the materials themselves. So for those families who Brent mentioned, some of the statistics about looking for that, more eco-friendly or green option, this does fit the bill. But, not everybody wants cremation. You want burial? You can have LifeArt.
Yep.
Wow. So I'm thinking, there's a lot of green cemeteries starting to pop up around the nation. So I'm thinking that this might be a really good green burial option other than a traditional shroud.
That is what the industry is telling us. People seem to be really excited about it because of those all of that eco-friendly. And we, purposely made the interiors. We didn't want to do a polyester, so we did a beautiful cotton. So that we do know that it's going to be biodegradable. It's going to be eco-friendly. And again, if we do use it for cremation, we don't want, the chemicals from the polyesters, to be in the air. So we've chosen all eco-friendly materials to make these up.
Wow. So we can do cremation or we can do burial based on the state regulations. And of course, the rules and regulations of the cemetery.
Absolutely. Always.
People probably don't realize that every state has their own rules, their own guidelines. And within that state, each cemetery also has their own rules and guidelines.
Absolutely.
So if you're interested in LifeArt as one of your final containers in life, definitely make sure that the rules and regulations fit your expectations.
Definitely.
That's true. Well, I have to say this has been such a vibrant conversation about the beauty of our life being portrayed on our final resting container. You two have been fabulous guests. I'm so happy to have you guys
Happy to be
with
here.
me. And I was honored to be at your event. And I look forward to the huge splash that LifeArt is going to make in our industry. But more importantly, the impression that it's going to leave those that are left behind to mourn their loved one.
Yeah, thanks, Genevieve.
Thank
That's
you.
our goal.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me today on this podcast, and I hope that you will share this episode with family and friends. We look forward to any feedback you have to offer by giving us a review on Apple or Spotify. And always remember, any day above ground is a good one.